Hey, everybody, welcome to a panel discussion on ticketing with an esteemed panel. And that's an understatement to call this group of people that we're with today esteemed. It's great to have each of these folks with me, Jamie, Dionna, Travis, and Cam. So first, before we get started, let's have each person introduce themselves. So we're going to go to our WashU alum, Jamie Weinstein first. Jamie, lead us off.
Yeah, hi. Thanks for having us. I'm Jamie. I work for the Milwaukee Bucks. I'm our Senior Vice President of Ticket Sales and Service here. Like mentioned, I'm a WashU alum, have made my way across many sports teams and different leagues, and have been here for now just over a year. Have loved every minute of it.
And have an NBA ring to show for it.
Yeah, it was perfect timing. I started right during the playoff run and I got in right before the ring cut off. So it worked out well.
And by the way, you're not the only person on this panel that has an NBA championship ring. Is that correct, Dionna?
That's right. The Cavs in 2016 got my ring.
Well, tell us a little bit about where you are now.
Yeah, so Dionna Widder, I serve as the Chief Revenue Officer for the Houston Dynamo, Houston Dash, and PNC Stadium of MLS and NWSL. Just finishing up my fourth season here at the club, crazy enough. 4 seasons has gone by fast. But I have spent a majority of my career in the NBA. So before here I was with the Cavs, spent some time in NBA Teambo and with the Indiana Pacers as well. It's great to join you all. Thank you for having us.
And Dionna, it's going to be great to host you soon in St. Louis. And I just want to let you know that we are coming for you. We are coming for you. I mean, look, now I hate to look at this. We're breaking out today. I mean,
send you some gear. I'm going to send you some, right?
Now, I haven't even shown you the best of it.
There's more. There's more. He's got a whole bag.
The custom shoes.
They made these for me because I got like web feet. But anyway, it's going to be, I just feel badly and I can't wear this too much because we have 6 alums that work at Nike. So if they saw me wearing this shirt, I think they would burn me where I sit and stand. So got to be careful when I break that out. But next I've got to go to my fellow UNC Charlotte 49er alumnus, Cam Florence, who it is his birthday today. Welcome, Cam.
Thank you for the well wishes, and I appreciate being here. Cam Florence, I'm the Vice President of the Washington Wizards for Sales and Service. I've been in the sports industry for about 14 years now. Very similar to Dionna, the majority of my time was with the NBA, where I got a chance to meet Jamie with the Charlotte Bobcats, and I was able to be a part of the Bobcats, the Hornets transition. Then I was able to get out west and help build a brand with the MLS with LAFC, and then we're able to bring some teams to the West Coast or to LA with the NFL with the Chargers and the Rams. So I'm very thankful for being here and look forward to the conversation.
Travis, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. Certainly appreciate it. As you can see in the background, I'm actually fortunate to be visiting Jamie, sitting right next to me. We're on 2 screens here in Milwaukee, but I work for General Sports Worldwide. We focus on recruiting and search, consulting and sales and leadership training, and then also run the clubhousecareers.com platform. And I've spent my entire career in this business, started with the Atlanta Hawks and Thrashers, before the Pittsburgh Pirates, Orlando Magic, where I worked with Jamie, spent some time in Phoenix with the Suns, the NBA league office, just post Dionna there, spent some time at the Marlins as well. And unfortunately I have 0 rings to show for it. I'm very far from any ring, but certainly excited to be here.
Well, that's great. Now, before we get into the meat of our conversation, talking about the ticketing industry, when you work in sports, we used to say back in the day, the only people that work in sports were athletes, and they just, use their connections. And there's not as much of that, but there's still some of that. So I want to just dig into the athletic prowess and go back into the time machine here. Dionna, I want to start with you. Were you a student athlete?
So I wasn't a collegiate athlete, but I was an athlete, since early on, 8 years old, started playing basketball and played all the way through high school. I had soccer and hoops dreams, but ultimately did not play in college.
So if Becky Harmon had been your coach, do you think that would have elevated your game to the WNBA level?
I would think so.
Yeah, no question. Now, Travis, I turn to you. What was your sport growing up? Did you play at the collegiate level?
Yes, I played baseball, basketball, and football growing up. Got to college and played a lot of club and intramural sports. But that's actually where I got into the business. Is with one of my majors, was able to start broadcasting and being play-by-play for football and basketball, which kind of really solidified my career path in the sports industry, albeit not sales at the time, but certainly down the sports path.
A story for another day. Someone should ask Travis about his triathlon experiences. He is very well versed in triathlon. So for another day, but
Well, maybe I'd be more impressed if he was a Tough Mudder. I mean, triathlon is one thing, but these people that do Tough Mudder or Ragnar, these are crazy people. These people should be checked out. I mean, seriously.
Well, we can go down that. Jamie not only has competed in multiple triathlons, but Ironman. So you want to talk about crazy?
this is going to turn on ragging on each other.
To the right of mine.
No, this is perfect. Now, Cam, I'm just gonna. I don't think, because I know that we went to UNC Charlotte. They're Division I in athletics. We know each other, so I don't think that you competed at the collegiate level. But what was your sport at the high school level?
Yeah, I was a
Am
basketball.
I selling you short?
No, you're spot on. I was a basketball and football player. And even to be more specific, I was a junior varsity all-star. Not one time was anyone looking at me like, I think he's going to go D1. But if you know DC, we're a true sports town in regards to growing up here, basketball, football people. Basketball was my first love and kind of what I loved playing the most. So it was one of my earliest interests, just being around sports and being a part of it. So definitely a basketball guy.
So I wanted to lead off with this question because I'm setting up our WashU alumnus here. If we go to screen share, and I just want to share with everybody real quickly, okay? This is make sure this is
Jamie Kessel.
We see you, Jamie.
hold on. So this
is
is
the best channel I've ever been on right now.
just to be clear, this is the softball record book at Washington University. Okay, so this is the records. And as we scroll down to page 7.
I hope it's not a picture.
No, there are no pictures. There are no pictures. I'm not a cold-hearted bastard, okay?
Yeah.
There are no pictures, okay? And not that a picture would be bad, by the way, but I understand that, not out of the blue. Okay, look at this. The home run leader of all time in WashU women's softball is Jamie King of the Mound Kressel. 32 homers.
Can you just come
MVP.
around with me every single day? You're like my hyper guy.
and fourth in total bases. So I just want, for the record, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to send this in the chat room to everybody, just so you have access to this, okay? And you can spread it around. So here we go into the chat room. There it is. So now you've got it for all time. The real question, talk about selling tickets. I saw Dan Farrell, who's the senior VP of marketing for the St. Louis Cardinals. I saw him at a game about a month ago. He said, boy, look what a genius I am that we signed Albert Pujols. If you are speaking to Albert Pujols this winter, because he's already gone on record saying he's not coming back, what do you say to him to get him back? I mean, that's a ticket selling machine. People will want to come out and see that. I mean,
You're saying
it's one thing to pass A-Rod, right? It's another thing to pass the Babe.
I would say it's no different than what we talk about with selling any ticket. It's like, how do you build rapport with Albert and understand where his true interests lie? I mean, there's obviously a reason he wants to retire, but how can you spin that from a personality end and have some fun and say, Albert, walk me through, what would you do if you hit 705? Imagine the crowd when you hit 713. Imagine the crowd when you hit 725 and really get the emotions. We talk a lot about in this business, you're selling emotions. We got to take the logical part out of that he thinks he's old and he's retiring. Let's get his emotions going and evoke emotion of how amazing it'd be for him and his family.
They need to get Travis in that boardroom ASAP.
Yeah.
No, don't worry. That's why we don't make these connections, so I can easily just kind of email and do a little CCing. And Mr. Farrell will be speaking with you all soon.
Worst case scenario, you use access to him to sell season tickets the following year. Right? You want to do BP with Pujols? Done. Like you get season tickets, gives you that access.
I think Jamie's hitting on it. As much as you can lean into utilizing your alumni, get them at some season ticket member events, get them at some prospecting events, or you gotta ride that wave as long as you can.
Segue into selling tickets. So I was inspired to put together this discussion with you all. And again, thank you for being part of this, because as somebody who mentors students and we're placing students all over the place, very few of my students are looking to get into ticket sales. We've had students that have, but it's not necessarily their first choice. I know that because of the advancement of analytics, I want to say it's become not necessarily easier, but there's more information now. One of the questions I have for this group, what are some of the misnomers that you think younger people have about ticket sales that you wish you could sit them down, talk to them and say, no, it's not quite like that?
I think ultimately the perception of any sales profession and what that means, it sounds very transactional. You align it with some of the sales experiences that you have had in your traditional retail, environments. And I think the key for me, and what we probably all talk about, is what the job really is. And it's less about the transaction and more about the connection, the opportunity you have to make a difference in somebody's life through an experience. And so we're selling experiences, we're selling moments, we're selling opportunities, and especially when you're talking about the B2B component, that's where the opportunities really line up into what you are doing. You're creating the fans and the environment in which teams succeed within. And that was my biggest connection. Like, I can create this environment so that the team can succeed within. And then you're also thinking about your own personal experiences. How can I help create an experience that I've had for somebody else? It's sort of that emotional connection of the process and the opportunity versus in this concept of transaction and sales. Also, ticket sales and the revenue path. I mean, these are the most successful positions that you can have at sports teams. Things are made or broken. You make or break a team based on the success of revenue. And realizing that is like, the closer you are to the money, the more opportunity you have to lead at the highest level.
As you're talking, the first thing that came to my mind is you talk about the experiences. I mean, we're not selling toasters here. We're selling fun, right? So I think that's a big part of it. Jamie, what would you add to that?
This might not answer the question, but my biggest pet peeve is when people think that getting a job in ticket sales is going to lead them to becoming the GM of a team, or like running, being a scout, an international scout for the team.
Does that happen?
Oh, often. Well, yes. Hopefully they're weeded out by the time I get to them, but yes, it happens very often. Or people's cover letter, it specifically says, or, some people have an objective on their resume and it specifically says, like, I want to be X, Y, and Z. That has nothing to do with a revenue generating department. Like, I'm good if you say you want to be in corporate partnerships at some point and you want to drive revenue. Like, I get that, but it's I want to immediately move to the basketball operations team, or I want to become GM, or I want, those other positions that are great, but this is not, to me, the best way to get there.
A lot of times we'll ask, like, why do you want this role? Or why did you apply for this role? And people will say, I'm the biggest NBA fan, or I'm the biggest Wizards fan. And what I always say to people like that is, then you should buy season tickets, right? Because we all know, there is, we've got 60 plus years on the sports team business and on this call, and we have 2 or 3 rings to show for it. So it's not like we're sitting here and we get to watch every game. To Dionna's point, you're selling the entertainment, you're selling that experience. And so really that kind of notion of ticketing, I think on the flip side, where I always see that opportunity is, like, I was asked, are you greedy? And people like get taken back by that question. I'm like, because if you're a little bit greedy, then you should want to be in sales, because you're going to have uncapped opportunity to make a lot more money than you ever dreamed of.
Travis,
the time and
I mean, you're speaking to a child of the 80s. You know what movie I watched the other night? I was so delighted. I stayed up till 1 a.m. because I hadn't seen it forever. Was Wall Street. And what sign for Wall Street?
Movie.
Yes.
Yep. No, and I think that's the big thing I always tell people is, like,
Cam's looking at me like I've never seen that movie in my life. That shows the age difference between Cam and I, right?
I love it. I love it. It's a good movie pull. I feel like for the last couple decades, it's almost been a lack of depth with the understanding of what ticket sales is, right? And even when you hear ticket sales in the marketplace, as a young person or a college student, you automatically even picture like the window at the box office trading in a couple tickets for some money. And that is a big portion of our business, which is fantastic, but there's so much more depth there. People, for some reason, don't understand how dynamic of a sales process ticket sales really is. And as a young person, as you're going into your next level as an adult and you building out your career, you want something with a lot of cachet and some flash. And ticket sales is hard work and it's rooted in a lot of grind, but there's still a lot of exciting dynamic situations that happen. You're sitting in face to face with CEOs, business owners, talking about a serious portion of their business, right? Travis brought up fun, and it is really a lot of fun because it's an awesome experience that you're providing. But this isn't just fun just for fun's sake to a lot of these presidents. So you really get a chance to be in these boardrooms and high-level executives diving into what the needs of their business are and where they're trying to grow in the next year to 5 years. And you get an opportunity to kind of build out a solution. And I think when you just hear ticket sales rep, it's not directly explaining and defining what we're truly doing here as a vertical. So if I could explain anything, I think that would be the perception I'd like to change.
There's just to build off that for a second too. I mean, I'm sure you guys have explored it, and I know I've explored it on teams that I've been in. It's like, are we doing ourselves a disservice by not rebranding the roles and sort of thinking about the ticket sales and rebranding it? But on the other side of it, when you rebrand it, you take away the aspect you just said, Cam, is the hard work and the grit and the sort of the greed a little bit that comes into the competitiveness of sales, that those individuals still need the sales characteristics to succeed in the role. But the role titles and how we sort of lean into the sales title or ticket sales titles is probably doing us a little disservice on the marketing of the role to the up and coming generation going into the business.
People talk about the younger generation because they're so busy doing this with their phones that they maybe aren't as good of communicators, which I have to imagine in ticket sales is an absolute must. So what are some of the attributes that are weaknesses when people are starting their job that is kind of like the first or second thing that you have to coach or guide your sales staff on? And what's the best way to help these people kind of get over that and take a weakness and turn it into a strength?
Yeah, I'll take that. I think one of those things, and you kind of hit the nail on the head, is what are the different ways to outreach? Like when all four of us started in this business, it was phone calls and faxes. Nobody had an LinkedIn account. Nobody,
Speaking fax.
Rarely did people have emails, or if they did, they weren't necessarily checking them. Handwritten notes was very popular. And I think, that's something actually we just talked about with the Bucks today is, not everybody responds the same way. So I think from a coaching and training is, are you thinking a little bit differently? Are you willing to evolve where, are phone calls still a must? Absolutely. But phone calls should be just a form of outreach with texting, emails, LinkedIn, handwritten notes, drop-offs, because everybody's going to respond differently. And so I think, to that point of communication, there are people like, and think about, and this could be a topic for 2 hours, social selling and being able to utilize Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn to sell and post content and turn organic hand raisers. I think that's a lot of those areas. And now that's where I kind of get giddy with young people, is like, they understand that social aspect. Now, if we can get them just to communicate as well, boom, like there's a lot of opportunity then.
Travis and I were talking about it earlier. I think the thing to reteach this generation, or not maybe reteach, but just one of the things that we talk about often is just like the grittiness, the want to do it, the drive to do it. You got to, right? Like I think, again, back in the day, Cam and I started in Charlotte, and our managers said, we had one manager said, make 40 business calls by 9 a.m. You start at 7:30 and you make 40 business calls by 9 a.m.
Hey, I know that guy.
Right. leave him out of this. I adore him. But like, I'm not sure any of us asked why or like what the reason is behind it. Now, again, this new generation wants to understand like what was our thinking behind it and why is that the best for them? And it actually is good, right? Because it challenges us to think differently and to get better and not just redo things that worked 14, 15 years ago. But it is just a different mindset with this group. And so I go back to like, we got to teach the grittiness. We got to teach just the hustle. And sometimes you just got to get it done to get it done to be successful.
You know, there's an opportunity to understand why this generation communicates the way they communicate, and how do you almost bring that out in them in sort of the way that Travis said. If they're really good at social communication, instead of changing, you know, I think there's opportunity to teach and create opportunities of communication on what we know works, but also how do we lean deeper in social selling, in social interaction and communication. And I think the biggest thing I've noticed is just straight confidence, you know, just coming in and being confident in the way in which you communicate. It's your voice, it's authentic to you. We hired you for a reason. We saw something in there, and we want you to use your voice, your authenticity to make the engagement with people that you feel comfortable connecting with. Like, that's an opportunity for us. And we want to keep feeding into the confidence piece. And so how do you sort of lift people up and making sure they realize that you don't have to transform yourself into this perception of a salesperson. We want you to be you and really utilize the power of your connection to create opportunities for the team.
I think the same thing I seen from the when I started my career is the same thing I see now, which is the need to get people from going from I need to be comfortable to I'm okay for being uncomfortable, right? Because it's not that this generation's bad communicators. It's that the truth of the matter is the sales process isn't really intuitive. It's actually the reverse of instinctual, right? This person may not want to speak with me. Oh, I'm going to go speak with them anyway. Oh, this person told me no. I'm going to ask more questions. It is truly the opposite of what you would just do almost as a human instinctually. And we get so bottled up in our comfort zone. And it's almost getting this generation to get more uncomfortable, which I think Dionna kind of hit on really, really well. Even to that, what's also discomfortable sometimes is going into an arena where you have 18,000 fans really wanting to watch a game, and you're trying to get face-to-face and interact with people.
Since all of you have been in ticket sales, I have to ask this question. It could be a touching experience. It could be a funny experience. It could be an awkward experience. I want each of you to share with me a memorable experience when you yourself actually like went into the venue to speak with one of your clients. And it was either touching or funny or maybe awkward.
I've actually had several situations where I am calling a person on their phone, trying to wave them down in the middle of their row, which was a back in the day thing when you just had to go visit your prospects all the time. And I see them look at their phone and hang up and ignore me. Like, I know I'm not the only person on this call that has experienced that. I have dealt with.
Well, that used to happen to me on the single scene here in St. Louis. I'd walk into a bar, I'd call the person, I'd see them at the other end of the bar, they'd look at their phone and they hang up. I get so dejected, I just walk out of the bar. So yeah, I mean, I know what you mean. It was a little bit more upsetting in that instance for me than it probably was for you, but I get it.
But you just used me for the free ticket. You didn't want to have a conversation with me. I remember having high level clients or prospects that we had out, and we were talking, business, but they wanted to upgrade from not just a seat, but to a court side when we didn't have court sides available. And they cussed the poor 22-year-old out, like, just being a little bit pompous. But these are just some of the interactions you have when you're dealing with high net worth individuals sometimes.
Yeah, we had a good one with a season ticket member. So when I worked for a hockey team, we had a high net worth individual who was sitting on the glass, and she was located very close to our the location for our camera folks, and they were too close to her. She did not like it, so she swatted at their camera, and which, then obviously turned into a whole thing. Security brings her up to the club level concourse, and she proceeded to stage a sit-in, which then I had to handle. She laid down on the ground and refused to move. And so trying to manage all the chaos that comes with that. And then on the back end, clearly revoking her season tickets, because that's unacceptable to treat our employees like that.
I think I know which team this was, and I know what part of the country that is. And the first thing you said to me when you said sit-in is that, that part of the country, they're pretty used to doing sit-ins, but we won't go down that road.
I went and visited this woman who had bought tickets for her mom's 80th birthday.
Nice.
If somebody had sent it to me, I was the VP, so I was able to get them seats. So it was hard to get tickets at the Cavs, obviously, at that point. So I went down to the seats to visit, and the woman was so sweet, and she just kept talking. I said, so are you a big Cavs fan? She's like, no, I am in love with Kevin Love. And she had this massive crush on Kevin Love. It's her 80th birthday.
Who doesn't have a massive crush?
I mean, the man, I have his bobblehead over here. He's nice. So I went down and I talked to the player, relations person. I said, I have this 80-year-old woman celebrating her 80th birthday tonight, and she's a huge Kevin Love fan. Is there anything we could do? She's like, oh yeah. She's like, so we brought her down into the tunnel and had her sit in a seat. And then she spoke to Kevin as he was coming off the court. So Kevin came down. I have the picture. Kevin came down.
That's awesome.
And took a picture with her. And then I kept all my photos and took his shoes off and gave her their shoes. And
oh my gosh.
April 11, 2018. I have a number of stories like this, but this one was a really, really fun one.
Well, like you say, it's about experiences, right? Travis, in your travels, have you?
Hard to follow up, from a tearjerker, but to Cam's point, we've got all different ones. We sell experience, and I try to say this in a nice way. At times, we don't deal necessarily with logical people; we deal with emotional people, and there's story after story. One of the instances I remember is when we were incorporating digital ticketing into this business, and some of your older members, especially on the business end, weren't appreciative of it. So I picked up the phone and called a CEO of a pretty predominant company. He had court sides, and he proceeded to MF me left and right. Went down, met with him at a game. The next game he's coming to, had a kind of an adult conversation and built some rapport with him that fast forward. And this was the best part about it. About 3 weeks later, he comes down, and of course he acts like he had no idea that he just said what he said to me. But he's like, this digital stuff's the greatest thing in the world. I could email my tickets. I could return my tickets that way. It was the best thing in the world. And I was like, yep, that's what we've been saying. So I think just the power of building rapport, the amount of people that, you'll get yelled at early on, and then all of a sudden it kind of ding, like the light bulb goes off, and they're like, you know what, this isn't bad. Like the solution that they did come up with, it actually works.
What would have been great is if he came down to you a couple weeks later and said, for an MFer, you're actually a pretty good guy. That would have been perfect right there. Nike, who is currently looking for, May 2023 graduates now, I don't think there's too many ticketing departments that are looking this early for a hire for next summer. Is there something that we can do with timing? Is there something we can do with education, like this video? And what can we do to sell these young graduates coming out on this profession?
I'd highly encourage using a recruiter. If only I knew one. I'll take that answer. I think what we've had.
You just did.
I think a lot of teams have incorporated this, and I've seen a lot of success with it. Is actually putting people through kind of a day in the life. You've mentioned a couple of times the SBJ conference that was talked about there, where you bring somebody in and you have them spend an entire day. You actually give them a script, you train them, you show them kind of like, hey, we're going to provide that blueprint and roadmap for you to be successful. Have them get on the phones. And, I think one of two ways have helped from that recruiting end. On one end, it's gotten people to self-select out and say, you know what, I appreciate this, but this isn't for me. But on the second end, I've had a lot of people who are like, honestly, coming in here, I didn't think I was going to like it, but I actually really enjoyed it. Like, this is something for me. Because I think, and all of us have talked about that, a lot of people, and myself included, when I was coming out of college, I didn't have any idea this business existed. Cam mentioned, I thought, I was just kind of taking tickets and selling out of the window. So I think just giving people a real life experience of what it truly means to be in that position and role will certainly go a long way.
I can jump in next. I think some of it, and look, like kudos to all the inside sales managers who are doing this every single day, but it's building relationships with all of the colleges and universities around the country and getting in with the professors who are the ones that have the closest connection with the college students. And then I think it's also teaching the professors and the teachers at these universities the value of a sales career, because I have heard many times, oh, my professor told me this is the best way to get my foot in the door. Well, we've got to redo that. That should not be said, right? Like we want professors to suggest that people get into ticketing for the reasons we've talked about today. Plus, I think like I only know this industry. It's the only thing I've ever done, but there are the most incredible people that work in sports and specifically in the ticketing world, and just the most genuine, caring, engaging, dynamic people. And so like, yeah, I might be biased, but if I'm a college student, I'd want to align myself with those kinds of people.
And let me just jump in for a second before we hear from Dionna and Cam on that. So it's interesting you mentioned that maybe part of the problem is at the university end, because I can tell you that there's a lot of schools that do not have a sales class. And part of it, I will tell you, like even at schools that I'm familiar with, there's a push. You try to go through the curricular department. We really need to have this. And sometimes some people on the academic side, for whatever reason, oh, this isn't academic enough. And it becomes frustrating because this is a skill and a characteristic and attributes that comes to this industry. So not everything has to be academic in nature. And I think that's why it doesn't get passed in some schools, but it's absolutely a miss. So you've got schools out there like Baylor, for example. I think Ohio University, one of the oldest sport management program. These schools are doing these sorts of things.
I do think it's starting earlier, and I don't think that is intended to mean that we start recruiting earlier, which is one aspect, right? It's us building those relationships and introducing the profession earlier on so that it becomes a path for somebody to pursue later. Often when you talk to a high school kid or early on college student, they're going to say something very generic like, I want to work in sports. What does that mean? I hear this a lot on my podcast. I'm sure, Travis, you hear it a lot in yours too. It's sort of, that was the seed. And then you go through a discovery process. Generally, you're not getting that discovery in college. You're getting it through connections and doing some, random research. I remember, I just told the story the other day, but I remember in high school making the claim I wanted to work in sports. I bought this random book that was like the 50 coolest jobs in sports. And it had like sales and marketing was one of the roles. And it was the marketing aspect that I was really interested in description of, creating experiences and fan development more so. And my freshman year, I went to the Detroit Pistons career fair and I just started asking questions. And the individuals that Jamie's talking about, these sales individuals and leaders, were so incredible. And they just gave me all of the information I needed to know like that's interesting enough for me to pursue it. And that's how I got into it. But it's on both sides. I think it's the curiosity of understanding what it means and defining that a little bit more clear when you claim you want to work in sports, and that there's some work to be done there. But also on our team side, how are we making those relationships and making our, sort of back of house business and how we do things and how it does work more understood publicly.
By the way, intellectual curiosity, I can't tell you, I'm glad you said that. And for the students that are watching this, when you ask good questions, you'll be surprised at people that remember that. I mean, Allie Gerard, who is not working in sports, she just graduated from WashU. She's working for McKinsey in New York. When she was a sophomore, so we're going back 3 years ago, Chris Zimmerman made a guest appearance to our class just as an observer because we had somebody from the hospitality and food and beverage space that Chris wanted to watch. And Allie asked the guest a question. And after class, when I'm walking with Zimmerman back to his car, he's like, who was that young woman that asked that question? That was a really good question. And it really, at that moment, I was like, every time we have a guest, Zoom, in person, a summit, whatever, ask good questions, do your homework, because you just never know when you're going to make an impression on somebody that they're going to remember.
I think this generation, the graduating classes, I think one of the hot buttons and things that they're looking for is a culture, right? A really awesome culture. And I believe that sports ticket sales and service, we represent that through and through. We offer that. One thing that we do a really great job of is building culture within this league and within this industry. And I don't think that's always really spoken about. You think of awesome culture and you think of work-life balance and you start thinking of tech companies, but I would put up our industry on a culture level up against most industries, right? I have 40 people out there on a day-to-day basis that are working really hard, but have smiling faces and they're happy to come to work. And they really, really like their peers, and not that kind of like your peers where it's like they're good from 9 to 5, but like they'll even go out with their peers after because they've built like this clique and this camaraderie and this team, right? It's very, very fraternal. And I think sports offers that because yes, it's business and we're pushing revenue, but we are so much mirroring of the sport that we are representing, right? We are very much a team atmosphere like the people on the field. We very much receive coaching like the people on the bench, right? We're very much practicing on a consistent basis like the people in the dugout. And I think because it mirrors and we're so close to the actual games that we are representing, I think a lot of that character is also pushed onto us and those pillars and those qualities. So I think you end up being a part of these teams that people are working really, really hard to, one, get to one goal, right? And then two, also show out and show that they get the best that they can be. And I think culture is something that I think we need to do a different job or a better job of focusing on and communicating about our industry. I think someone on this call said something about rebranding, and that's something I would like to rebrand and do a little better job communicating.
Well, Cam and Travis, the three of us are in the presence of greatness with these two NBA championship ring holding women and Jamie and Dionna. So we thank both of you. Obviously, thank Cam and Travis. This has been a really fun discussion. Jamie, I hope I did the WashU flag proud today. Dionna, just a friendly reminder, this is in your future, whether you like it or not.
Bring it.
I've had people try to jump me on the street because I'm wearing this beautiful scarf, and I've had to tuck it away in my backpack over there when I'm on the street. So I've got to go to class, unfortunately, but thanks again. I hope all the viewers enjoy this segment on the ticketing industry, and thanks again to my panelists.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.